Rick, as you guys start to get ready for game 2 here, I wonder what the process is. You talked about the balance between overloading information and getting guys ready. What does the next day and a half look like?
Well, you do a little bit of a game review, what we could do better, show some of the things that we did well. It's one of those things. You have an optional for guys. I think especially after the first game, a lot of emotions, a lot of guys building up, and I think it's important that if guys feel that they need to stay off the ice, that you take that. But there is information that we can get better at going into tomorrow, and so we had our meeting about that.
You said you felt like your team had another level that they can get to. What does that entail?
I think a little better on the forecheck, edge battles off draws, things like that. I think we can be better. I think as the playoffs go on, you always look for that level of play. You look at the game and could have gone either way. So how do we get better at it? But the one good thing that I always respect our team is our play without the puck. We don't give up a lot, and when you don't give up a lot, it helps working on other parts of your game. We don't always have to fall back on, D-zone coverage and stuff like that. We can concentrate on other things, which helps our team.
Rick, how much was yesterday about just like a build waiting to break through and get those back-to-back goals? It felt like you guys were playing the type of game that you wanted in the first half, just nothing seemed to break, or how did you guys think it built up throughout the game?
Well, obviously the tying goal, right? Getting that puck in the middle with our level of traffic, that was big. That's a big goal, and I think everybody breathed after that. And obviously getting a goal off the forecheck, the Garland forecheck with Lindholm and Dakota like 12 seconds later. I mean, that's a huge momentum for us, especially after killing those penalties. And I felt, I didn't feel any panic the whole game, but I felt after we scored those 2 goals, you could see guys were like breathing a little bit, seemed a little bit looser, I guess.
I guess with all the emotions yesterday, especially at the first period and the way that game starts and everything, now that you've had a night to sleep on it, does the team kind of take a step to the next level of like, hey, okay, we know what playoff hockey is like, and we can see this in game 2, or is it going to be high emotions just as it was in game 1?
Yeah, I don't know. I know the players were pretty, a lot of wow after the game of how loud the crowd was. I thought some guys told me they got emotional during it, so I think going into this next game, I'm sure the crowd is going to be just as loud. Where we got same passion, same thing, same emotion. Just make sure that cut down on the penalties and some stuff system-wise we can be a little bit better. That I think you just got to be in check a little bit emotionally. But I thought you got to feed off the fans. It's great.
Rick, how much more do you learn of the game watching the video than you see from the bench?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think as the game goes, like for me in real time, I kind of know. Like I don't need the next day to kind of validate. The odd time, hey, I misread, but I kind of knew what we, what I thought last night was, what I watched today. To me, it's a matter of good coaching and that's why I'm lucky. I got a great staff. Is how do you present it to the players without being negative or without being too like where it's hey, we won the game, you can't correct things. I think it's important you tell a story. And whatever our story today with the players is going to help us for tomorrow. So I think that's what I look at a video for, like creating your narrative to the players. What can we do to get better? So that's what we spent all morning on.
People talk about adjustments, but I mean, at this point, is it just more tweaks rather than wholesale changes?
Yeah, I think the tweaks, for sure. I mean, let's face it. They know us, we know them. There might be some stuff there that they're going to adjust on, and we got to be ready for it. Vice versa. So, but no, you got there's and a lot of times you in-game adjustments too. Whether you take a guy off a line, you try different things. You can't be afraid to do that in game, and I think that's important. That if that happens, don't be afraid to do it.
Hey Rick, you've had Garland and Joshua together, obviously. They started with Suter, then it was Teddy, now it's Elias. Why is it Elias now? Why did you see that as the fit when they had such success with Bluger?
Yeah, it's a good question because I find with Teddy or with Dak and Gars, when they have a guy that's a smart guy, but is around them a lot, they're successful. And if you watch Lindy, he's close to him, and if you heard Dak last night say, if he makes a mistake, he knows Lindy's got his back, right? It's kind of fun. I shouldn't say fun, but it's kind of comforting to know when you have a guy. Hey, if I do dive in or I make the wrong play, I got a Lindholm behind me. Teddy at the beginning of the year, Teddy was the same thing. Very good, responsible guy, and Suter, another responsible guy. So I think those guys love the fact that they have that blanket, security blanket behind them, but also knowing that they can contribute offensively.
And last night you had Lindholm against O'Reilly as much as you had Miller, slightly more, but they both played a lot. But Lindholm said after, they are the third line, and they don't see the first pair that much for the other team. If you have a really good third line, how much of a wild card, how much of a difference maker can that be over a playoff series?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think to win, you have to have a third line. And I guess every team's different. I'm not saying loading up doesn't work. I just feel for the way we're built. I like our, whether you want to call it the third line or not. I mean, I think in the playoffs too, status and first, second, and third line. Everybody knows who the guns are, but that's a pretty damn good line. Whether you want to call them third or not, it's a good line.
Rick, you wind up winning without necessarily your top players figuring heavily in the scoring. Now, with JT and Bess in that line, they controlled play quite a bit. Petey's line, not as much. They spent a bit of time on their own end, and we've been talking about Petey since the All-Star break.
Sure.
You're going to need him at some point. I know you know that to produce. What can you do at this stage of the season when the games matter so much for him to find more?
Yeah. Well, we got to help him. It's my job. I got to get him in, try to get him in a good frame of mind every night. They struggled a little bit. I thought Hoggy was caught in between. I don't think Hoggy helped. I'm not blaming Hoggy, but I think the forecheck, they were just disconnected. When they're connected, they're a good line. And it feels like if they could just each guy do their job, if whatever that job is, just stick with it. It might not happen the first two shifts. And I think sometimes they abort it too quickly because whether they're frustrated. And I had a good talk with Pete after the game. He's not frustrated. I think he's going to play. I think he knows what he has to do better. But the forecheck for me on that line was just okay. And when you're not forechecking, you're not coming up with loose pucks. What are you doing? You're chasing the game. So I think they just got to stick with the system, and when there's a chance to be creative, be creative. We don't want to take the stick out of their hands. I just think that they got to get the puck first before they be creative.
And you talked about practice, that emotional game last night. You wanted to give guys time off if they wanted it. Have you got a philosophy on when you want to practice during the playoffs? Does it matter on whether you win or lose, or how many days you have between games, or what matters to you?
That's a good question. My philosophy is practice. I would have rather practice today, early in the series. But because of, I think there's some guys that haven't played playoff game because of the emotional, whatever I could tell guys were spent after the game. But usually early in the season, I really believe teams should practice for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then take this. I'm not a morning skate guy, but I felt the guys deserve. And the beauty with this, guys, they always tell me, you decide. And I want them, no, you guys can decide, because it's, I think at this stage of the playoffs, you got to give the player freedom. What's the best for you to perform tomorrow? I don't want. It doesn't always have to be my decision. So I just felt just take an optional. It's up to you guys, and that's why I only think that 7 or 8 guys went on today, right? I think it was 7, 8 guys, 10, 9. There.
Rick, the penalty kill last night, you talked about it post game about how important it was. When you got here, it was. It was almost historically bad, the numbers that have been putting up. What's been the biggest change? I know there's a lot of different personnel, and was that what all those guys last night, that's what they were all brought in here for specifically?
Yeah, I think personnel really helps. Obviously, getting Teddy, Lindholm, obviously later, Ian Cole. So I think those are the type of players that have helped. Dakota's increased play. And, a little bit of system stuff has helped. Saying that, I think if we had better clears this year, right, I think honestly, we're up at two more percent. I think we're up in the 80 early. Like I think the clears have cost us, so that or our exits. That's our next level. How do we get better at that? But overall, the system part and the personnel have been really good. And you're going to have to kill pressure situations. If they score, they're up 2 goals, right? We score those 3. So to me, the personnel has really helped. Give Patrick a lot of credit going those type of guys. That's helped us. And then also, like an Ian Cole. Like I've seen him in action in big games, killing a penalty.
Speaking of special teams, your power play, Rick, has always had top 10 potential. I mean, on paper, it looks fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of swagger there. It can be like a playoff dagger. 0 for 2 last night, 2 good looks. Bess has 1, PD has 1. How do you guys draw more power plays? Secondly, I know you've talked at length about this. How are you going to score power play goals? Because a lot of stuff, as you know, tends to come from the perimeter.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I don't want to be frustrated because it's a group that's. I thought they did have some looks, right? Missed the net a couple. If we hit the net there, one, I think it's in the net. So there's the execution for the last couple months has been just okay, and the mindset has to change. And I'm not sure you're going to change it. You're not going to change it like this. But it's a group that likes to set up plays, and we got to break that pattern. We need a little more road hockey goals. There's a shot, the puck goes in the corner. Really, there's no play. If they have 3 guys in the corner, somebody's got to get it. We attack the net. It's not okay. Let's like basketball. Give me the ball. It doesn't work that way. And I think we've gotten better at it. We're just not there yet. And tomorrow, hopefully, we get another inch better at that.
Hi. The fans are super excited. They've been waiting 13 years for this. The question is obvious for many people is what's changed? People talk about a change of culture, change of strategies, the presence of the Sedin as coaches as well. What in your coaching strategy might make a difference?
Well, I mean, obviously, winning helps the belief, and you just ride that emotion. Coming in here, that's the biggest thing is, obviously you got to get to the players first, that what you're doing, they believe in what you're doing, organizational wise. And then hopefully, you get the belief from the fans. I mean, like I said, that's as good as it gets. For a first playoff game and in the opening round, that's as loud. My son was at a game there, I forget where he was, a playoff game last year, and he said this was way louder. And he was pretty impressed by the whole thing.
Change of culture in the team?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you always build culture. I mean, accountability and stuff like that. It all get wraps in, Yeah.
You've mentioned edge battles on draws a couple of times, even last night. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think I'm a big position than the puck, and I thought we were going to the puck, not the position. And I thought they won the battle where they'd jump by us to get the puck. And everybody always puts the onus on the centerman winning and losing a draw, which is true. But there's about 20% of the time where it's up for grabs, or you can win a puck battle for your team or your centerman. I thought we weren't good. I thought they out battled us on those edges, and that's you go far in the play. That's winning and losing, right? These are huge plays. Power play, it's an even play. You don't come up with that loose puck, and they ice it. That's 30 seconds. Now you got to get back in. If you keep that puck in, and you multiply that, you can win 2 or 3 of those a game. Multiply that by 82 games, you're talking about 300-400 and more looks with 30 seconds. So I think it's a huge thing.
As far as their breakout goes, they seem to have more success early in the game compared to later on. Was there adjustments you guys made? Yeah,
we adjusted, and it wasn't really an adjustment. That was the game plan. I don't think it. I'm not trying to sound negative. It only takes 1 or 2 guys off on the forecheck that can kind of disrupt the 5 guys or the 4 extra guys. But I thought it was just about 2 or 3 individuals who weren't there for us, and that's why it looked like they were getting out easy. But like I said, that the Garland forecheck was what we want, So tactically, I think it was stated. I just think we executed the second half better at it. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Rick, last night you said that you've believed in Dakota Joshua for a long time.
Yeah.
What was it initially that you saw in him, and then you were like, this guy?
Wall play, when he gets going, his feet moving, his hands for a big guy, his coachability, like you can tell him something and he wants to do it, right? He's a coachable kid. I just don't think, he's been around in different organizations. He's never really, I don't know what's happened in the past. I just think that he needed to be pushed in the right direction, in the right way. And he took the criticism. He was awesome at the beginning of the year. He took it. He knew whatever the problem we had, and he owned it. And look where he is now. He's done a hell of a job for us.
You've had a long career in this league. Is there anyone that you've played with or against who he reminds you of?
No, that's a good question. Put me on the spot. There's so many players. Well, I gotta think. 'Cause I played a lot of players, coached a lot of guys. He's just a long guy. Yeah, it's a good. You got me on the spot on that one.
Sorry.
I'm usually pretty good at that.
Sorry, I know. That's
Let
why
me
I
give.
asked.
I'll get back to that because I don't want to give the wrong guy. You
Yeah.
know,
Thanks.
because if I pick the wrong guy, he's either gonna put pressure on him or he's gonna be mad at me because he goes, "I'm better than that guy." Higgy, yeah, maybe. A little bit taller Higgy. There you go. Good hands, yeah.
So,
Smart guy.
Rick, I'll ask you something about, referring to your playing days. We see there's a lot of former players, either in management or behind the bench, and we hear from Anaheim, let's say, that the GM there, the way that he played, he's looking for that sort of guy, and this sort of guys in his lineup. In Montreal, Marty St. Louis, looking for a high IQ guys. Obviously, Craig Berube, whenever he coaches, he doesn't expect his guys to to drop the mitts. But in your case, what made you a very good player? You had values, you have convictions about what needed to be done. Do you still look at the things that you believed in as a player in all of your guys to this day?
Yeah, I think the guys you mentioned and myself, I think you got to be careful because I think I fell in that trap early as a coach, and I always felt the guy. You got to be harder on the puck. You got to do this. You got to, I'm not saying fight, but you got to be always hard, and I don't think you can coach that way. I want players to play like I think you have to coach guys who they are, but the values you're talking about, like being a team guy, the crest, that's number one for me. Like, it's not an individual sport for me. It's a team sport. So I the one thing, the crest was always something for me. When I played Philadelphia, that crest, Pittsburgh, those were, the players you played with, that was big. And, you try to fit that puzzle. But, you got to be careful of coaching. I want these, I don't go to Patrick. I want all these guys. You're not going to win with 21, Rick Tocchet or 21 Marty St. Louis. I mean, I don't think you can, but I think that I know you can't now with 21 Craig Berube. I know that. He'll be mad at me if that would. But no, but you know what I'm saying. It's a crest thing for me. It's a team thing, and I think that's the values of those guys you mentioned. Rod Brindamore, team guy, crest guy. You can go down the list of those type of players. Patrick Waugh, Patty Waugh, same thing. Great goalie, but he was always about the crest, things like that.
Also, it seems as though both teams have tried to bring veterans who had a lot of playoff experience prior to this season, or let's say the last couple of years. How much does it weigh, that effort from both teams? How much does it weigh in the balance during this series?
Like the guys the veteran guys that they got?
But on both sides, does it
Ryan
even
O'Reilly
out,
and Ian Cole, guys like that, it's huge. There's been times this year I felt our team get a little antsy, and Kohler's demeanor after the game has helped our team. I've seen it. It's easier when it comes from the player, the peers, than the coach. When you have that player that can settle guys down. And I think we lost 4 in a row one time, and I think Kohler talked to the guys. And the next night we had I forget who we played, but we had a good night. I think Kohler and some of the older guys, I think, won us that game. Whatever they did, it was nice for them to do that. It can't always from the coach, and Riley's probably one of the best guys at that, probably.
Coach, so throughout the season, you've talked about managing the emotions, not getting too high or low, depending on the results. When you see the players as emotional as they are of last night, Besser told us today that he had a tough night sleeping just because he couldn't, wind himself down. How does you, as a coach who has all this experience, portray that management, like how to manage those emotions come playoff? Because it's a whole different animal once you're actually in it compared to just talking about it before the playoffs actually start.
Yeah, the hard part is, getting jacked up for game 1, but how do you come in game 2 and stay that jacked up? I still think there's 4 or 5 guys that could really help us tomorrow. I thought they were just okay yesterday. I think that I got to lean on them tomorrow to really. I think they need to bring the juice for us tomorrow. I'm leaning on 4 or 5 guys that to come out of the gate hard for us, and that's really what it comes down to. That's what happens in the playoffs. You're not going to have the same guys do it every night. It's hard, but there's some guys when it's my turn. I got to get these guys up, and we're looking for some individuals to really step up tomorrow for us.
Enough already. Like this
has nothing to do with me. I don't like doing it.
Don't need that, huh?
Generational talent. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing.